Hello everyone! So I meant to do this video a couple days ago, got sidetracked, got busy. So better late than never, I guess. But this is there's a lot of things today. April/May wrap up and my June TBR. So I was out of town at the beginning of May, and that is why I'm doing my April wrap up with my May wrap up, because I didn't have the chance to do it in May. So we're just gonna go and get started. So for April, my month was very, I had finals and stuff, and I was traveling, so I only read 2 books, which is not a lot for me. I was kind of disappointed when I figured that out, and they were both like right in the middle of the month. The first book I read, which is gonna be clever, is like Lizard Queen, woo! I read this one with Krista from If Books Could Talk. I'll leave her links below, and we did a buddy read of this. And this book was so good. I guess at first I was struggling to get into it. Like, I would just turn a page and be like, okay, whatever. And then finally at the end, or like near the middle or something, I picked up and I was like, whoa. And then I just like kept reading until I finished it. And it was very good, and I'm eager to see what's going to happen next. And some of it was predictable, but some of it was not, and I really like that when I still get surprised in books. But this book was good. This book was good. I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. The next book I read in April was Every Day by David Levithan. Wow. This book, if you do not know about this book, it's kind of hard to describe. There's this person, I guess, who goes into a new body every single day. That is their life, basically. And so they go through all these bodies, and then they meet a girl, and they're kind of in love with the girl, and it's very interesting. But it was so good. Like, seriously, I loved this book so much. You get to see into other people's lives, and you get to see how impactful people are on each other and the decisions you make, and it really made me think about how I live every day of my life, I guess, and what I do. And I really appreciated that I had this book to tell me that, because I love the way it made me think and reevaluate my life. And I think it was really, really cool. And I gave this book 5 out of 5 stars because it was just great. Okay, that was all I read in April. Yep, big whopping 2 books. So now we're going to go on to May. Like I said before, I was traveling at the beginning of May. And so I like to bring like 1 or 2 books. And so one of the books I brought was the bind-up of all of the Chronicles of Narnia books, and I've just been slowly making my way through this. So in May, I first read The Magician's Nephew. Here's the cover that the book has for it. This book was okay. It was mainly like introduced you to how Narnia was made and how it was created and the start of it and everything like that. And it was really interesting to see a new part of it and to learn the origin of a lot of things, and that was cool. It was kind of boring though, and it was like, because they kind of go back and forth between worlds, and it was all over the place with that, and I don't know, it was kind of like hectic, and it was kind of hard for me to follow sometimes. So I gave that 3 out of 5 stars. After that, I read the second book in the series, which is The Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe, and some of you may be thinking, oh, that's the first one, which it is, but it's not. There's a series written with like Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe, and Prince Caspian and everything like that, and then C.S. Lewis went back and wrote a couple more books, but they fit into the beginning. Like The Magician's Nephew was written later, and another book which I'm going to mention in a second was written later, but the series order is different from the publication order. It's very weird and kind of confusing, but you get what I mean. So yeah, I read The Lion, Witch, and a Wardrobe, and I haven't seen the movie in so long. But I watched it now that I remembered most of the stuff that happened in it, and I really liked it. Like, I liked being able to read it and really experience it, and I really liked it, so I give it 4 to 5 stars. After I finished that, I finally finished Gone Girl. By finally finished Gone Girl, I mean I started this in April, and it was a gift, and I finally finished it. This book was crazy and all over the place, and I think the author just like really thought through everything and really like set everything up great, and I don't even want to say very much because I don't want to give anything away, but this book was like nuts. So I don't know. You should read it, maybe. There's a lot of profanity in it, though, so be careful. But, book is crazy. Book is cool, though. After that, I went back to the Chronicles of Narnia, and I read The Horse and His Boy, which this was also one that was written later, but put into the books. And this follows some other kid who, like, when Peter and Susan and Edmund and Lucy are all ruling Narnia, it's some other kid in, like, a country next door, or, like, two doors away, I guess. And he comes into Narnia and he interacts with them while they're kings and queens and stuff. And that was really cool to actually see Edmund and Lucy and Susan, you don't really see Peter, as their kings and queens. And that was interesting. And also just to get another view of this world. I gave this one 2 stars though, because it was kind of boring. Like, it was great to learn about all these other things, but it's kind of boring. Like, at first it was really interesting, and then at the end it was interesting, but it was really predictable what was going to happen, and it just, everything else in the middle was like, oh, okay. Like, it wasn't interesting, and I was kind of bored with it, and it took me a really long time to read. After that, I read Prince Caspian, and Prince Caspian was also named a movie, and I couldn't remember anything from the movie. I remembered, like, the beginning of, like, when the Pevensies go, and then that was it. And when they leave. That was all I remembered. And this book was actually really, really interesting. I loved the first half or so. It's probably a little bit less than half. Where it goes into Caspian's story and how he got to where he was and his history. And I loved that part. That part was so good. It was so good and so interesting. And then after that, it kind of went downhill because they just started traveling and it was really boring and everything was the same, and I was like, okay, ready for it to mix it up a bit, and it didn't happen. And I gave it 3 out of 5 stars though, and I really did enjoy it. The first half was very good, the second half was okay. After that, I decided to take a break from Narnia for a little bit, and I read We Were Liars, and I read this in less than 24 hours. It was so good. Oh my gosh, I heard so many good things about this book, and I was like, no way, I can't get my hopes up, I can't live up to the hype. And it sure did. I mean, I've heard mixed reviews of it. I've heard some people loved it and some people hated it and everything. But I was not expecting it to be what it is, I guess. Like, going into it, I was expecting one thing, and then I started reading it and I started feeling something else, and then overall it just was something else entirely different, and I loved it. And I can't tell you anything about it because I think this is one of those books you need to go into blind. But read the back that there's a family who owns an island, and I think that's all you need to know, and they go there every summer. I think that's enough for you. But this book is so good. I gave it 5 stars, and after I read it, after I finished it, I was just like, oh my gosh, what did I just read? Because it was so crazy. It's so good though. So good though. After this, I went through my summer goals, which was to reread Wake. I was going to call it Fake. Wake and Fade, and so I could read Gone and finish this series. While I was doing this, I was also reading Voyage of the Dawn Treader, like, 1 chapter at a time. But these books were just, I don't know, these were rereads, Wake and Fade were. So the first time I read Wake, I gave it 4 stars, and this was 5 years ago. I gave it 4 stars. Going back through, I don't know why I gave it 4 stars. I gave it 3 stars this time because it was very predictable, very kind of boring. Like, it was very anticlimactic, and I felt like it built up to nothing. And also, I'm not really a fan of the writing in this. Like, it has a certain style, which some people love, and that's okay, but it's not for me. It's very short, sweet, and to the point, and lacks a lot of detail. And I mean, it makes for a nice, quick read, but I wanted to learn more about things that I never got to learn, and so that was kind of upsetting. But yeah, those were my problems with it. But the story itself is so interesting. It's so interesting. If you don't know, it's about a girl who can go into other people's dreams, and that I'm just gonna leave it at that because I think that's pretty explains it enough for you. It's really interesting, the story though, which brings me on to Fade, which I originally gave 3 stars, and this time around I gave it 4 stars because this one was so much more, had like more depth, and there were so many more things happening, and it was so much it was so much more interesting, and the story actually became like fast-paced and like crazy and like what's going on, and I really, really liked that about this one. And you got to learn more with Janie about what she is, and that was super interesting to be able to learn about that and to understand what she is going through. And I really liked this one, so I gave it 4 stars. After that, I finally finished the series with Gone, which I gave 3 stars because it was very predictable, and also it didn't really have the crazy fast-pacedness of this last one. This one was kind of slower, and it was like all over the place, but it wasn't in a good way. It was just kind of like, okay, now she's here, now she's here, now she's here, now she's here, but it wasn't moving the story along, I guess. I mean, it kind of was, but most of it was predictable, so I would be thinking like 5 steps ahead, and it would take her a real long time to get there. And it was really interesting. I really liked this book, and I liked learning more about Janie's family and her background, but at the same time, the story that happened in this just wasn't super great. So after that, I read Voyage of the Dawn Treader, which I loved. I loved Voyage of the Dawn Treader. It was so good. I give it 4 to 5 stars. I couldn't remember the movie at all, and like as I was reading it though, I was bringing back the movie and everything, but it was so cool because they go to all these different islands, and it's, you know, it's interesting. There's something new, something different about every island, and I really liked that. And I was never a really big fan of Lucy, but I really liked Lucy in this one, and I like Eustace and Edmund and Caspian. I love Caspian and Reepicheep and everyone, and I just love the characters in it, and it's so good. And at the end, Caspian gets really sassy and throws a hissy fit, and it's hilarious, and I love it. So yeah, I give that 4 to 5 stars. So those were all the books I read in April and May. In May, I read a whopping 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9, 10 books in May. Woohoo! Even though most of those were very, very short, but still 10 books is 10 books. And then for April, I read 2 books. So I have 12 books here. And so now I'm going to go on to my June reads / TBR. So this is fairly simple. I'm going to be working on finishing the Chronicles of Narnia. I have 2 books left. I have the Silver Chair and then the Last Battle. And after that, I'll be done with this series, which has taken me so long to read, but it's very good. And then I'm also working on Gone. I actually only have like 100 pages left. And this is a reread for me. I read this also 5 years ago. But I can't remember anything. I remember like one scene and kind of the ending, but I am still not even sure if I correctly remembered the ending. But almost done with this book. I don't even know how to have words because this book is really, really good. And then after that, I'm going to work on finishing the series with Hunger, and then Lies, and then Plague, and I know my covers don't match, and that's very upsetting to me. And then Fear, and then we're going back to Light, which cover does match. And these are bigger books, and this series, it has 6 books, so they're kind of longer, but I think I can do it. It's summer, it's June. I'm believing myself. See? Okay. So these are kind of thick, but maybe, just maybe, I'll be able to do it. So that's really all I have planned for June. It's just that and finishing Chronicles of Narnia and just getting 2 series done with. Because those books are huge and they've been hanging out on my TBR shelf and I think they need to go. But that is it for today. Let me know what you think of any of these books and what you read in April / May / going to read in June. And I will see you guys next time. Bye. That was kind of rushed. I can't pronounce her last name. Whoa, they're out of order.